is, we call it Yudhisthira's lamentation. And it's from verse 44 to verse 52. So that's, extremely brief overview of what we're going to encounter through the course of the whole chapter. But tonight, it's section B. Ashvatthama tries to kill Parikshit from verse 8 to verse 17. And first of all, as we do, in order for us to tune in and just really understand the context of what we're going to be discussing. So first of all, we will just read the translations of the actual verses, and then we'll come back and go through them again, but with the purports too. Right, because we want to get this deep into your heads and hearts. Right, so Ashvatthama tries to kill Parikshit, verses 8 to 17. Verse 8. As soon as he seated himself on the chariot, he being Lord Krishna, as soon as he seated himself on the chariot to start for Dwaraka, he saw Uttara hurrying toward him in fear. Now, why would that be? Well, listen and find out. Verse 9, Uttara said, O Lord of Lords, Lord of the universe, you are the greatest of mystics. Please protect me, for there's no one else who can save me from the clutches of death in this world of duality. Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? Just amazing. Okay, so verse 10. O my Lord, you are all-powerful. A fiery iron arrow is coming towards me fast. My Lord, let it burn me personally, if you so desire. But please do not let it burn and abort my embryo. Please do me this favor, my Lord. Wow, amazing. What a story. Verse 11, Sutta Goswami said, having patiently heard her words, Lord Sri Krishna, who is always very affectionate to his devotees, could at once understand that Ashvatthama, the son of Dronacharya, had thrown the Brahmastra to finish the last life in the Pandava family. Verse 12, O foremost among the great thinkers, Munis, Shonaka, seeing the glaring Brahmastra proceeding towards them, the Pandavas took up their 5 respective weapons. Verse 13, the almighty personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, having observed that a great danger was befalling his unalloyed devotees, who were fully surrendered souls, at once took up his Sudarshan chakra, or Sudarshan disc, to protect them. Verse 14, the Lord of supreme mysticism, Sri Krishna, resides within everyone's heart as the Paramatma. As such, just to protect the progeny of the Kuru dynasty, he covered the embryo of Uttara by his personal energy. Verse 15, O Shonaka, glory of Bhrigu's family, although the supreme Brahmastra weapon released by Ashvatthama was irresistible and without check or counteraction, it was neutralized and foiled when confronted by the strength of Vishnu, Lord Krishna. Yeah, that's it. Verse 16, O Brahmins, do not think this to be especially wonderful in the activities of the mysterious and infallible personality of Godhead. By his own transcendental energy, he creates, maintains, and annihilates all material things, although he himself is unborn. Verse 17, thus saved from the radiation of the Brahmastra, Kunti, the chaste devotee of the Lord, and her 5 sons, and Draupadi, addressed Lord Krishna as he started for home. That's amazing, isn't it? How's that? Wow. That is just fantastic. Okay, so back to verse 8. So as always, what we do, we read the verse again, just the translation, and then we have a look at the purport. Because Srila Prabhupada, his purports, they're just full of so much nectar and so many interesting points and just things sometimes you really don't even expect. So here's the verse again. Verse 8. As soon as he seated himself on the chariot to start for Dwaraka, he saw Uttara hurrying toward him in fear. Right, so there's a short purport there that all the members of the family of the Pandavas were completely dependent on Krishna's protection, and therefore he protected them, all of them, in all circumstances. He actually protects everyone, but one who depends completely upon him is especially looked after by the Lord. The father is more attentive to the little son who is exclusively dependent on the father. So yes, well, let's just, that's a point which we, as we go through the Bhagavatam, we just come across time and time again, and then again, and then again, how Krishna looks after his devotees, protects them. But an interesting point here, which I think deserves little attention, Srila Prabhupada says, the Lord protects everyone. Of course, he gives special attention to those who depend completely on him and don't have their own independent plan for looking after themselves and just dealing with life. So, but he actually protects everyone. What does that mean? Well, in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 4, verse, 11, Yeyatamam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajamiham mama manuvartante manusyapatha savasha. As they surrender to me, as all surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. So, the thing is this, he protects his devotees. And the more dependent the devotees are, the more he protects them. Because you get all sorts of devotees, from the most surrendered to the, those are kind of in between. They don't know whether they should be devotees or not. Or what are the odds? What are the benefits? But they're still, you can't say they're just not devotees at all. So, but what about the people who really are not devotees at all? What is this idea of protection from the Lord? Well, the idea of protection is that in order to straighten you out, Mr. Materialist, and correct you and actually get you to understand that I should stop depending on the material world and start depending on Krishna. So Krishna places the materialists in situations, all of them, inevitably, they all get placed in situations which shake them to the core. Difficult situations. Even, like the biggest, most powerful materialists. Adolf Hitler committed suicide. He was shaken beyond to the core. It was too much. And the FBI just raided Donald Trump's residence. Haribol, we're not interested in politics. But I'm just saying, it shakes people up. It's difficult to come out of something like that as a smart aleck. It cools people down. And when people get cooled down, then the possibility starts to develop that they may start looking beyond just their immediate material situation and start questioning what's going on in my life. And these are like small steps, but they're steps in the direction of Krishna consciousness. And if then they get the association of devotees, well, the whole thing, can accelerate. And just with anyone, just anyone, it's really amazing how people become affected. Yeah. By extreme difficulties when they happen. And they do happen to everyone from time to time. So like this, the Lord protects everyone, but particularly those who depend completely on Him. Yes. Okay, so verse 9. Verse 9. Uttara said, O Lord of Lords, Lord of the universe, you are the greatest of mystics. Please protect me, for there's no one else who can save me from the clutches of death in this world of duality. And we can just note, Prabhupada doesn't mention it in the purport, but you can just note, it is pointed out elsewhere that the great devotees like Uttara, like Arjuna, when they want when there's some crisis and they really want some help, some mercy from the Lord to get them through the crisis, they don't simply say, it's a crisis, help! They offer some glorification first of all. Did we mention that the other day? I don't think we did. I think it's coming up. Did we mention it? Anyway, whether we did or not, this is a very important point that great devotees, they always offer some glorification, even if the dangerous situation's right on top of them, as is the case here. So she doesn't get into it too much, but at least she says, O Lord of Lords, Lord of the universe, you are the greatest of mystics. This is glorification. This is glorification of the Lord. Then, please protect me, because there's no one else who can save me from the clutches of death in this world of duality. So in the purport, Prabhupada begins by talking about how this material world is the world of duality. Whereas in the spiritual realm, it's oneness is there. Srila Prabhupada made the point that in Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna, when Krishna's a little boy, then when Krishna, Prabhupada says, when Krishna was good, he was good. And when Krishna was bad, he was good. Yes, he's just good. Even when he got up to some mischief, everyone was very happy. Yeah. Whereas, when someone does something, we're happy with them. And when they do something else, we're not happy with them. This is duality. And sometimes we tell a famous story, which we actually got from Back to Godhead. You might have heard me tell this story before. There was a wise man, and he had a son, and he had two foolish friends. You know this story? You heard this story? Anyway, okay. Wise man's son, two foolish friends. So the wise man, one day, what happened? Yeah, he had a horse too. His horse ran away. Somehow it escaped. And his foolish friends came and they saw what had happened. And they said, "Oh, that's bad." And the wise man said, "It may be bad, it may be good." The next day the horse came back. And the horse brought another horse, a friend. So now the wise man's got two horses. And so the foolish friends come by and they see this and they say, "Oh, that's good." And the wise man said, "It may be good, it may be bad." The next day, the son tried to tame the new horse. It was a wild horse. So he just jumped on the back and tried to ride the horse and just pacify the horse, but he couldn't. And the horse threw him off, and the son broke his leg. So now he's lying down, he's got a broken leg. And the foolish friends come by, and what do they say? "Well, that's bad." And the wise man says, "It may be bad, it may be good." The next day, the king declared war on some neighboring state. So his soldiers were going around finding all the young men to grab them and just stick them into the army on the front lines to be killed. So the soldiers came to the wise man's house, and there's the son lying down because he's got a broken leg. And the soldiers thought, right, this is the sort of man we want. Yeah, just lazy fellow. So they went to grab him, but then they saw he's got a broken leg, he can't even move. So they left him and went away. And the foolish friends came, and what did they say? "Oh, that's good." And the wise man said, "It may be good, it may be bad." So this story was in Back to Godhead years ago. But it's one of those things that just struck me. And it's still with me. So this is, duality is there, but a wise person is not affected by the duality. Yeah. Yeah, so Prabhupada goes on. Spiritual world is just spirit. That's all. It's simply spiritual. Whereas the material world is matter and spirit. It's both. Like we are matter and spirit. It's, at this stage, so to speak, because we're all eternal spirit souls, so that's there. But we have these material bodies. And if anybody tells me they're completely detached from their material body, then I'll say you're either foolish or a liar. Yeah. Because we know how it works. So yeah, this is the world of many types of dualities. But the first duality is that we are spirit and matter. I mean, we're in a state, you could say, at this point, of being spirit and matter. But in the spiritual world, everything, the absolute world, everything is completely spiritual. So then Prabhupada goes on, in this world of duality, everyone wants to become the master, whereas in the absolute, so, everyone, that means there's so many of them trying to become dominant. There's really a lot. Really, really a lot. But in the absolute world, the Lord is the master, everyone else is his servant. So there's no duality in the sense that the devotees, some devotees are thinking, why am I a servant? Why can't I get more prominence? And Prabhupada goes on, in this world of duality, everyone is envious. Everyone is envious of all others. It's amazing. It is amazing. Prabhupada, in that regard, Prabhupada talks about householders. In English there's the saying, keeping up with the Joneses. You must have heard of that. The next door neighbors. You must have stuff which is like furniture and all that, which is as good as theirs. Otherwise, you'll just be sort of a nondescript. So Prabhupada makes the point that householders sometimes, they just get really good furniture. Not because they want to use it, but and then they invite people, not because they want their association, but because they want to show off. And get people to think, oh, these people are cool, better than us. So, it's an aspect of envy. And then there's death. Talk about duality, life and death. Sure. I mean, it's too heavy, actually. So Prabhupada concludes by saying, the Lord is the only shelter of fearlessness for the surrendered soul. One cannot save himself from the cruel hands of death in the material world without having surrendered himself at the lotus feet of the Lord. Wow, this is nectar, isn't it? This is powerful stuff. So, verse 10, O my Lord, you're all-powerful. A fiery iron arrow is coming towards me fast. My Lord, let it burn me personally if you so desire. But please do not let it burn and abort my embryo. Please do me this favor, my Lord. So again, this is Uttara. And, let's have a look on the purport. Prabhupada explains, actually. This incident took place after the death of Abhimanyu, the husband of Uttara. Yeah. Abhimanyu is the son, one of the sons of Arjuna, but he was killed in the battle in a very, unfair way. He was killed. And, as Prabhupada points out, Uttara should have followed the path of her husband, should have done sati. Normally, a wife would just walk into the funeral fire. The funeral fire, the cremation fire, just walk into it, sit down in the middle of it, and it hurts for a little while. But then, they just sort of conk out. Yeah. So, but she didn't, because she was pregnant, and she had to now look after the child who was coming. So, and that was Maharaj Parikshit. Yeah, so she was responsible for his protection. And Prabhupada makes the point, the mother of a child has a great responsibility in giving all protection to the child. And therefore Uttara was not ashamed to express this frankly before Lord Krishna. Yeah, I mean, she just told him clearly. She didn't beat around the bush, although she did glorify him briefly at the outset. So Uttara, very special person, the daughter of a great king, the wife of a great hero, and student of a great hero. And later she was the mother of a good king also. She was fortunate in every respect. Amazing. Verse 11, Sutta Goswami said, having patiently heard her words, Lord Sri Krishna, who is always affectionate to his devotees, could at once understand that Ashvatthama, the son of Dronacharya, had thrown the Brahmastra to finish the last life in the Pandava family. Because Ashvatthama has already killed the 5 sleeping sons of the Pandavas. Did we go through that? We did. Right. Yeah. So he's already killed them. Now there's just one son who's actually not son, but grandson of the Pandavas, who's Parikshit, who is in the womb of Uttara, who was married to one of the sons of the Pandavas. Right. Okay, so, purport. And again, Prabhupada makes the point. The Lord's impartial in every respect, but still he's inclined towards his devotees. And now this time, not just because they're dependent, but here's now another reason. There are different reasons why the Lord is inclined to help his devotees and protect them and give them special care. So the reason here is because there's a great necessity of this for everyone's well-being. What does that mean? Well, it means the world, everyone needs the association of devotees. Yeah. So there's a necessity to help the devotees so, everything they do is successful, so that the people get their association. So the Pandavas, their family of devotees, the Lord wanted them to rule the world. That was why he vanquished the rule of Duryodhana and company and established Maharaj Yudhisthira as the ruler. Therefore he wanted to protect Maharaj Yudhisthira, who was lying in embryo. He did not like the idea that the world would be without the Pandavas, the ideal family of devotees. So the thing also is that the Pandavas by this time, they're older, and Draupadi, their wife, is older. They're all older. I mean, not old, but they're probably, 50-ish or something like that. And when people get to that sort of age, and pardon me for saying it, but as I understand, particularly ladies, they can't reproduce any longer. Or it becomes extremely difficult or even impossible. Eventually it actually becomes impossible because of the biological reproductive functions. So it may have been too late for them and Draupadi to have another child. Yeah. So, and all their other children are dead. So, this is the last chance. So, yeah. So here we have a little note from Srila Jiva Goswami. I said yesterday that here, from this 8th chapter, we include some comments from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Jiva Goswami. So here, Srila Jiva Goswami says that, well, referring to the verse which says, having patiently heard her words, Lord Krishna, who's always very affectionate to his devotees. So Jiva Goswami says, Krishna attentively heard her words, since he is very affectionate to the devotees. If it was just someone else, some materialist, saying, come on, God, give me some money, or something like that. Oh God, why won't you cure my sickness? He's not going to really tune in. He's not going to bother with them so much. I mean, he's probably not going to really bother at all, because he knows that Yamaraj is taking care of them by seeing that they get their karma very nicely. But with the devotee, Krishna listens carefully and really takes to heart what the devotees say and what they ask of him, because of his affection to his devotees. Let me just have a quick look at one thing here. Yeah, right. In the actual Sanskrit, Sutta Goswami says, Bhagavan Bhaktavatsala. Bhagavan, Lord Krishna, Bhaktavatsala. He's very affectionate to his devotees. Bhaktavatsala is actually a name of Krishna, and it means he who is the friend of his devotees. So on to verse 12. Let's see. O foremost amongst the great thinkers, Munis, Shonaka, seeing the glaring Brahmastra proceeding towards them, the Pandavas took up their 5 respective weapons. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport gives a bit of background to this Brahmastra weapon. Brahmastras, they're like nuclear weapons. In other words, they really are immensely powerful, but they're even more powerful because a Brahmastra can actually destroy a planet. Whereas to make an atom bomb which would destroy this planet, sure, I mean, it would have to be quite a big one. I mean, really, really, really big one. So, yeah. So, an interesting point, Ashvatthama discharged the Brahmastra simply to kill the Pandavas, all 5 of them. It wasn't just the child in the womb of Uttara. He actually wanted to kill the Pandavas and Parikshit. Yeah, that's something we not so normally aware of. And the Brahmastra it's not blind like an atomic bomb. It's much, at least a person who's expert can control it to the point, as in this case, that it kills the child within the womb of the mother, but does not harm the mother. What to speak of kill, doesn't even harm the mother. That's, pretty sophisticated technology. So, when the atomic bombs are discharged, they don't discriminate between the target and others. And mainly, they do harm to the innocent, because there's just no control. As you're probably aware, the only two times these types of bombs were used were at the end of the Second World War in Japan, Hiroshima, and then about a week or 5 days later, Nagasaki. And it just wiped out. It wiped out by the tens of thousands the local civilians who were just, carrying on. They were not really engaged they definitely weren't soldiers. Yeah. But, it's amazing if you've seen photos of the aftermath of Hiroshima particularly, because the bomb for Nagasaki it missed. It didn't actually, Hiroshima, it hit right on target. But Nagasaki, it missed the target and was on the edge of the city that it exploded. But you see, Hiroshima, it is flat. It's just flat. Yeah. So Brahmastra's not like that. It marks out the target and proceeds accordingly without harming the innocent, as long as someone who knows how to control it is using it. So, okay, that was 12. 13. The Almighty Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, having observed that a great danger was befalling his unalloyed devotees, who were fully surrendered souls, at once took up his Sudarshan disc to protect them. And Prabhupada talks more about the Brahmastra. It's something similar to a nuclear weapon, but more radiation and more heat than nuclear weapons. And interesting, it's a product of sound. It's a sound weapon. It's ignited by sound. It's fired by sound. Yeah. So all Ashvatthama did was chant the right mantras. And then the Brahmastra just took off. Yeah. Well, actually, the Brahmastra appeared and then took off. Yeah. So Brahmastra is product of a more subtle science, being the product of a finer sound, a mantra recorded in the Vedas. And it's not blind, we already talked about that. It's more dangerous than atomic bombs because it can penetrate a protected place and it'll never miss its target. And therefore Krishna took up his Sudarshan disc, which, now that's another type of weapon altogether, the Lord's Sudarshan disc. Oftentimes devotees pronounce it Sudarshan. I don't know if you've heard that, but it's actually Sudarshan. Means very amazing sight. Very amazing sight. So, okay. Yeah. So as he promises in Bhagavad Gita, he took up his weapon. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has clearly promised his devotees are never to be vanquished. And then another interesting point, we touched on it. He behaves according to the quality or degree of the devotional service rendered by the devotees. And the Pandavas, they were ananya vishayatmanam. Ananya means nothing, no other. Anya means other, and ananya means no other. They had no other shelter than Krishna. Yeah. 100% dependent on the protection of the Lord. Even though they're great warriors, but they never thought they were great warriors. They just thought they got a lot of mercy from the Lord. Therefore, they always won by Krishna's grace. So Krishna responds according to the degree of devotion. And, okay, he never neglects, the Lord neglects even the greatest warriors and vanquishes them in no time. Yeah. So, and here Krishna, when the Lord, I'm looking at the purport still towards the bottom, when the Lord saw that there was no time for the Pandavas to counteract the Brahmastra, he took up the Sudarshan chakra. Otherwise, they're quite capable of counteracting it. And, it's still the battle of Kurukshetra. Basically, the action has finished, but it's still, certain aspects of it are just slowly coming to conclusions. And Krishna has taken a vow not to take up a weapon. But here, he breaks his vow again. Just as he did, when did he do it? Picking up the wheel of the chariot to defend Arjuna against Bhishma. Right. So, the emergency, Prabhupada makes the point, the emergency, he should not have taken up his own weapon according to his vow. But the emergency for his devotees was more important than the vow. So it's interesting. He is better known as the Bhakta Vatsala, or lover of his devotee. And thus he preferred to continue as Bhakta Vatsala than to be a worldly moralist who never breaks his solemn vow. So, okay. Now here's something from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. This is interesting. Listen to this. Arjuna had counteracted one Brahmastra with one of his previously. If you remember, at the end of the previous chapter, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. In the previous chapter. He had counteracted one Brahmastra with one of his own Brahmastras. But now, Ashvatthama had released 5 separate Brahmastras for each of the Pandavas. This was difficult to counteract because it would take time to release 5 Brahmastras. Considering the unavoidable danger, though the Lord had renounced all weapons, he protected his devotees, even if he had to break his own promise, in order to preserve his unique quality of having affection for his devotees. It's interesting, isn't it? Sure, Krishna. Amazing transcendental person. Okay, so verse 14. The Lord of supreme mysticism, Sri Krishna, resides within everyone's heart as the Paramatma. As such, just to protect the progeny of the Kuru dynasty, he covered the embryo of Uttara by his personal energy. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. So he did two things. He released the Sudarshan chakra and he covered the womb of Uttara. So, okay, purport. So Krishna is just the supreme mystic, so he can be in everyone's heart at one time, or even within the atoms at one time as supersoul. Therefore he entered the body of Uttara. From within the body of Uttara, he covered the embryo to save Maharaj Parikshit. Yeah. So, and yeah, I mean, it's also like a bit a historical point, is that we talk about the Pandavas and the Kauravas in terms of the Battle of Kurukshetra. Kauravas means members of the Kuru dynasty, but the Pandavas are also Kauravas. And in fact, they're in a higher position as Kauravas because they are meant to be the rulers, not Duryodhana and company, who were actually ruling by all sorts of trickery and deceit. But actually the Pandavas were like the senior Kurus or senior Kauravas, but still we generally use this terminology, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Right. So Prabhupada says, when there were differences between the two families, the sons of Dhritarashtra were known as Kurus, whereas the sons of Pandu were known as Pandavas. Since the sons and grandsons of Dhritarashtra were all killed in the Battle of Kurukshetra, the last son of the dynasty is designated as the son of the Kurus. So, now here again, something from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Get this. You may have to fasten your seatbelts a little, because he's pretty radical commentator. As the Paramatma, Krishna was situated within Uttara already, of course. But by the power of his yoga, he entered as Krishna. How's that? He didn't just as Paramatma say, yeah, you deal with it. He personally entered the womb of Uttara, even though he was already there as Paramatma. But to care for his devotee, he personally entered and protected the embryo. Yeah. So how's that? Anyway, as the Paramatma, Krishna was situated within Uttara already, but by the power of his yoga, he entered as Krishna and covered the embryo. Covered means he protected it for continuation of the Kuru family. He used his yoga maya potency so that even Uttara was unaware of what he did. Hare Krishna. Isn't that, it's amazing. Krishna's amazing. Okay. And verse 15. Well, yeah, let me just mention, well, should I? Okay. Dhritarashtra, you know the story from Mahabharata, how he got 100 sons. You know the story with the swan, the swans. You know that story? The swans? Dhritarashtra had a special skin condition, and the only thing that could cure it was if he applied a certain substance which was only found in the brain of a swan. Haribol. And his condition was so bad, they had to kill 100 swans in order to get enough to, cure his skin condition. So they did. But he was told at the time, you can do this, and you may get 100 sons, but they'll all die at one time, prematurely. Yeah, and it'll be, great disaster for you. All right, anyway, here we go, verse 15. O Shaunaka, glory of Bhrigu's family, although the supreme Brahmastra weapon released by Ashvatthama was irresistible and without check or counteraction, it was neutralized and foiled when confronted by the strength of Vishnu. So, if you remember, the previous Brahmastra, Arjuna released his Brahmastra against it. You remember that? And the two met and exploded together, and it shook the whole universe. Because that's how powerful Brahmastras are, and this is two of them. It shook the entire universe. And some people thought it was the end of the universe, but then everything stabilized. But now, when Krishna fired the Sudarshan Chakra against this Brahmastra, or 5 Brahmastras, just neutralized them just like that. This is Krishna. He didn't have to ignite them all and make a whole thing of it. He just neutralized that Brahmastra. Right. So Prabhupada says, in Bhagavad Gita it said that Brahmajyoti is resting on Lord Krishna, or in other words, it is the rays of the body of the Lord, just as the sun's rays are rays of the sun disk. That's an interesting point, isn't it? The Brahmajyoti is the effulgence of Krishna's body, and Krishna's body is blue. Therefore, the Brahmajyoti is blue. Therefore, our sky is blue, because our sky is Brahmajyoti, covered by matter. But just as we're spirit soul covered by matter, but still you can see we're spirit souls, we're alive, we're conscious, etc. And that life and consciousness, that's not something of the body. It's sort of despite the body, still there's consciousness and life and so on being displayed. So similarly, the sky is the Brahmajyoti, but it's covered by matter. But even though it's covered by matter, still you can see to some degree the color of Krishna, the color of the Brahmajyoti. What do you think of that? Sounds interesting. Prabhupada talks about that on a few occasions, actually. Yeah. So, right. So, where are we here? Yeah, so Krishna just did it himself without having to worry, take help from anyone. So verse 16, O Brahmanas, do not think this to be especially wonderful in the activities of the mysterious and infallible personality of Godhead. By his own transcendental energy he creates, maintains, and annihilates all material things, although he himself is unborn. Right, so, well, there's a couple of points here. I mean, these are just short purports. So the Lord's activities are always inconceivable to the tiny brain, the tiny brains of the living entities. Just like we've mentioned before, I'm sure you'll remember. Prabhupada was talking with one devotee, Rabbatanandan, how Lord Brahma comes from being inside the body of Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and then the lotus comes from the navel, first of all the stem and then the flower itself, coming from the navel. So Lord Brahma comes from the body through the navel, through the stem, and then comes out on the lotus, on top. And Prabhupada was explaining that to some devotees, including this Rabbatanandan. And Prabhupada said that also the planetary systems are within the stem of the lotus, and after a while they come out. And the devotee, this Rabbatanandan, asked him, how can we understand that, Srila Prabhupada? And Prabhupada said, it is too much for your puppy brain. So, how the Lord is doing so many things. They're just inconceivable to our little brains. But for him, nothing's impossible. But the things which for him are just routine, for us they're wonderful. So he's 100% perfect, although others, even Lord Narayan, and what to speak of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, the demigods and everybody else, that's including us, we only possess, or all these entities, even Lord Narayan, only possesses a certain percentage of the attributes of Krishna, not all. Even Lord Narayan. Brahma, Shiva, the demigods, and us up to 76%. Narayan up to around 90-ish%, all except the 4 special qualities of Krishna. So they only possess different percentages of his perfections. No one's equal to or greater than him. He's unrivaled. And verse 17, thus saved from the radiation of the Brahmastra, Kunti, the chaste devotee of the Lord, and her 5 sons and Draupadi, addressed Lord Krishna as he started for home. So, Prabhupada, there's a purport here, and, well, it's pretty short, really. So Kunti is described as sati, or chaste. And what is that? It's due to her pure devotion for Krishna. And we will get a real glimpse into her mind, into her heart, when we go through her prayers. Which devotees, we're not having an evening program tomorrow because we have to pack up because we're leaving on Thursday for Joburg. So I will give a class, though, at some point during the day. I think it's going to be from 12. I think I'm going to be giving a class from 12 till 1 or, just after 1. So anyone who would like, you can come along if you're free. If you're not free, we'll broadcast it on Facebook. We'll broadcast it as usual, I think at the right time. Anyway, I'll have to ask Arjuna Charan. What's that? What do we do about that, Arjuna Charan, Prabhu? He may not be listening. All right, anyway. So, she is chaste because she doesn't look to anyone else for anything, including deliverance from danger. But for other things also, she doesn't turn to anyone else except Krishna. And this is a very important quality for us as aspiring devotees, to be chaste devotees in that sense. Not just, that normally the term is used in regard to sort of sexual or male-female relations, that sort of thing. But here, of course, that's included with Kunti, but particularly it's chastity in the sense of not taking shelter of anyone else, just Krishna and his devotees. So that was the characteristic of the whole family of the Pandavas. They knew nothing except Krishna. Therefore, Krishna was always ready to help them in all respects and under all circumstances. That is the transcendental nature of the Lord. He reciprocates the dependence of the devotee. Therefore, we shouldn't look for help from imperfect living beings, demigods, etc. And Prabhupada comments, such a chaste devotee also never asks the Lord for help, but the Lord out of his own accord is always anxious to render it. So devotees, we just got through the section and we got plus or minus 10 minutes to go. I want to read the verses, as many as I can, or hopefully all of them, of the next section from verse 18 to verse 43. That's a big section, 25 or 6 verses. And this is actually the prayers of Queen Kunti, so it's very significant. Srimati Kunti said, O Krishna, I offer my obeisances unto you, because you're the original personality and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You're existing both within and without everything, yet you are invisible to all. 19. Being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you're the eternally irreproachable factor, covered by the curtain of deluding energy. You're invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. It means an actor dressed for the part that he or she has in the drama. Verse 20. You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service unto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? 21. Let me therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord, who has become the son of Vasudeva, the pleasure of Devaki, the boy of Nanda and the other cowherd men of Vrindavan, and the enlivener of the cows and the senses. My respectful obeisances are unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower, who are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, whose glance is as cool as the lotus, and whose feet are engraved with lotuses. Verse 23, O Rishikesh, master of the senses and Lord of lords, you have released your mother Devaki, who was long imprisoned and distressed by the envious King Kamsa, and me and my children, from a series of constant dangers. 24, my dear Krishna, your lordship has protected us from a poison cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. And now you've saved us from the weapon of Ashvatthama. 25, and this is a great classic verse. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we'll no longer see repeated births and deaths. 26. My Lord, your lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who's on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. 27. My obeisances are unto you, who are the property of the materially impoverished. You have nothing to do with the actions and reactions of the material modes of nature. You are self-satisfied, and therefore you are the most gentle and a master of the monists. Verse 28. My Lord, I consider your lordship to be eternal time, the supreme controller, without beginning and end, the all-pervasive one. In distributing your mercy, you're equal to everyone. The dissensions between living beings are due to social intercourse. 29. O Lord, no one can understand your transcendental pastimes, which appear to be human and are so misleading. You have no specific object of favor, nor do you have any object of envy. People only imagine that you are partial. Verse 30. Of course it is bewildering, O soul of the universe, that you work though you're inactive, and that you take birth although you're the vital force and the unborn. You yourself descend amongst animals, men, sages, and aquatics. Verily, this is bewildering. Verse 31. My dear Krishna, Yashoda took up a rope to bind you when you committed an offense, and your perturbed eyes overflooded with tears, which washed the mascara from your eyes. And you were afraid, though fear personified is afraid of you. This sight is bewildering to me. Verse 32. Some say that the unborn is born for the glorification of pious kings, and others say that he is born to please King Yadu, one of your dearest devotees. You appear in his family as sandalwood appears in the Malaya hills. Verse 33. Others say that since both Vasudeva and Devaki prayed for you, you have taken your birth as their son. Undoubtedly you're unborn, yet you take your birth for their welfare and to kill those who are envious of the demigods. Verse 34. Others say that the world, being overburdened like a boat at sea, is much aggrieved, and that Brahma, who is your son, prayed for you, and so you have appeared to diminish the trouble. 35. And yet others say that you appeared for the sake of rejuvenating the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshipping, and so on, in order that the conditioned souls suffering from material pangs might take advantage and gain liberation. Verse 36, O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities, or take pleasure in others doing so, certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. Verse 37, O my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today, though we're completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when all kings are at enmity with us? 38, as the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit, similarly, if you do not look upon us, all our fame and activities, along with the Pandavas and Yadus, will end at once. 39. O Gadadha, Krishna, our kingdom is now being marked by the impressions of your feet, and therefore it appears beautiful, but when you leave, it will no longer be so. 40. All these cities and villages are flourishing in all respects, because the herbs and grains are in abundance. The trees are full of fruits, the rivers are flowing, the hills are full of minerals, and the oceans full of wealth. And this is all due to your glancing over them. 41. O Lord of the universe, soul of the universe, O personality of the form of the universe, please therefore sever my tie of affection for my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. 42. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you, without being diverted to any one else. 43. O Krishna, O friend of Arjuna, O chief amongst the descendants of Vrishni, you are the destroyer of those political parties which are disturbing elements on this earth. Your prowess never deteriorates. You are the proprietor of the transcendental abode, and you descend to relieve the distresses of the cows, the Brahmins and the devotees. You possess all mystic powers, and you are the preceptor of the entire universe. You are the Almighty God, and I offer you my respectful obeisances. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Javan, what is it? Oh, okay.